It takes 13 muscles in your face to smile, but it only takes about 4 to continue on a curse. Hello everyone and welcome to yet another video I expect to be copyright strike, but if not, maybe I'll smile. See what I did there? In case you couldn't tell from my A+ level comedy there, I am going to be taking a look at the movie Smile. Oh dear God, not you. Smile was released in 2022 and to this day has a decent rating of 6.5 out of 10 and a popularity of 261. Not bad for almost being a year out from release. Smile was directed by Parker Finn and stars Sosie Bacon, daughter of Kevin Bacon, as the main character Rose Cotter, Jesse T. Usher, no relation to the other Usher, as Rose's love interest Trevor, and Kyle Gallner as Joel, Rose's former love interest. But enough of that, let's give a quick praise to the copyright gods and hop right on in. Oh hi Mom. As we can see, Rose grew up with a rather traumatic childhood, and no better way to fix that than to become a licensed psychiatrist. We see Rose deal with her first patient Carl as he is reading out his positive affirmations.
He's gonna die, she's gonna die, Mom's gonna die, I'm gonna die, everybody dies.
As we see Rose deals with some of the very serious mental patients in her line of work, with Carl saying he can feel it all squeezing in around him. We get an overhead shot of our main plot line being wheeled into the hospital. As we find out later, making it to White Castle, Kumar became the head of the local hospital and doesn't care if you have insurance or not. No bread equals dead.
Oh, it smells like porn here.
Rose is told to go home after having been there since the previous night shift until her supersonic hearing allows her to hear her phone from all the way down the hall in this very busy hospital. Rose is then briefed on her new patient Laura, as she is also the person on the cover of this movie, to find out that she is there after having witnessed her professor bludgeon themselves to death with a hammer. Man, those finals must have been something else. Rose then begins to ask Laura some baseline questions to get to a sense of how she is thinking. Laura explains that she is seeing something that no one else can see but herself, saying it looks like people, but it's not people. It's pretending to be people that she knows, and is even taking the form of her grandfather who died when she was 7, much like how Rose found her mother dead at a young age. Laura says every time she sees it, it's smiling, but not like a good smile, but like a terrible feeling that fills her with fear, even saying that it told her that today will be the day that she takes the forever sleep. Laura begins to lose it even more when she believes that Rose does not believe her. And even after looking at Rose, Laura then begins to freak out like someone griefed her Minecraft house. But after calling for emergency staff, Rose turns around to see Laura smiling at her whilst holding a piece of a broken vase. Laura then proceeds to give herself a next smile before dropping to the ground lifeless, all whilst still smiling. And roll credits. The police show up to investigate the death of Laura, and the head detective has as much bedside manner as an aluminum bat.
Sort of evil presence was haunting her.
Yikes.
But luckily, Joel does some of the heavy lifting and asking some of the more poignant questions, to which Rose says,
Yikes.
She was smiling before she died. Rose now does what she should have done hours before and goes home to see her lovely cat and finds that she has a little souvenir from the day's events with a little bit of blood on her shirt from Laura. After getting changed, she does what most people do to forget traumatic events, and that's getting wasted until she can see what appears to be the silhouette of Laura in the kitchen, until she is jump scared by Trevor, causing her to drop her glass. Trevor, though, appears to be a nice, loving boyfriend and offers to help her work through it, but Rose insists on going to meet her sister and her husband for dinner. After arriving at the restaurant, it is clear that Rose is still very much struggling with the death. Her sister Holly and her husband Greg seem pleasant as they criticize Rose's work and tell her, why even become a doctor if you can't be disgustingly rich? Holly then tries to push Rose into selling their childhood home, and boy would I have already taken the forever sleep if I had to deal with those two garbage cans. Rose arrives for work with a very fitting coffee mug, with Joel just kind of stalking Rose at her work, as it visibly frustrates Rose, causing her to just kind of scurry off. Rose then begins to dig into the events leading up to Laura showing up at her hospital. Holly calls Rose to apologize for being a terrible person when Rose notices someone staring at her through her window from the courtyard, only to then be walking down the hall and see that Carl has a big ol' smile on his face. Now you may be asking yourself, is this the smile thing, or is it the fact that Carl is crazy? And the answer is yes. Yes, she is crazy. as he was simply lying in bed and now has the worst wake-up call ever. Dr. Desai has a conversation with Rose telling her that she's going to be taking a paid week off, even saying she's been working 80-hour weeks for almost a month. Which to me doesn't sound like a bad idea, but I'm not a workaholic like Rose is, as we can all tell by my upload schedule. Rose, now having some newfound time, decides sure, I'll get my nephew a birthday gift and actually go spend time with my terrible family. Rose returns home and busts out the bumblebee wrapping paper until she goes to pour herself some more wine, only to be startled by the home alarm system and drops yet another wine glass, making it a total of 2 so far. She then locks the front door and turns off the alarm, only to see that the back door is now wide open. But before she has a chance to check it out, her phone rings and it appears to be the security people. That is, until they come off super creepy, even asking her to look behind her, which she does, and only to find out that she never picked up the phone. And this is where things start to get trippy. The cops now show up since Rose is pretty well freaked out. The cops just kind of brush it off as a false alarm as Trevor pulls up to the scene. And first off, why is businessman Trevor getting back so late? But he immediately questions why the alarm was set, because I'm guessing she never sets it when he's supposed to be coming home, which kind of ruins the whole point of a security system. I know if my wife was home alone, I want that bad boy locked up like Alcatraz. But the most important part of this whole fiasco is that no one can find Mustache, and what are we going to do without Mustache? After spending the entire night not being able to find Mustache, we get another wonderful view of Mom, who, as before, does not look too well. Sorry, Mom. For some reason now it appears that Rose has all of her recordings of her interactions with Laura continuously playing and appears to have possibly heard something on the recording, only it's not the recording she should be paying attention to. Hello, cheap $2 jump scare, and goodbye to my clean undies, as we see Laura is just kind of hanging out. Maybe she's just trying to collaborate with Rose on her podcast. Trevor now comes running into the kitchen, having likely heard Rose screaming, only to see her cowering in the corner with a knife drawn. Man, the optics on this look really bad, huh? But I guess with all that, it's now time for the psych to get some psych help. Psychception. Now, I know this is probably pretty common with how much Rose has had to deal with troubled patients, but I wouldn't want my psychiatrist going to her own psych. Like, I feel like I'd be getting secondhand psych evals. Of course, Rose's psych tries to bring up her past troubles with her mom. Remember her? Instead, nope, Rose just wants drugs. Lots and lots of drugs to make all the bad thoughts go away. Thanks, American medical system. Just take one and call back in the morning. Also, Dr. Madeline here thinks it would be a good idea for them to resume their sessions, but Rose just wants those sweet, sweet drugs. But now it's time for the big party. Unfortunately for Rose, this party is also filled with middle-aged housewives who want consulting on whatever lame thing affects middle-aged housewives, like why does their husband always leave the toilet seat up? I'm pretty sure it's because of some childhood trauma, if I had to guess. But oh goody, it's now time for little Jackson to open up his birthday gift from Aunt Rose, and everything will be just fine once he sees that fancy little toy train that she got him. The only downside being is that once little Jackson opens up his brand new toy, not only is it not the fancy train that he was expecting, but we also find the answer to the cliffhanger of what happened to Mustache. That's right, Mustache became CGI and also dead and put in a box, but that second part doesn't matter. Everyone there clearly doesn't appreciate the love and affection that went into this gift, and all begin to look at her like she's crazy, but who doesn't like getting dead cats as gifts? Only one person seems to be enjoying it, and that would be the housewife from earlier, as she has a massive smile plastered across her face as Rose continues to have her mental breakdown. That is, until the figure now appears closer to Rose and she goes through the living room table, WWE style, firmly cutting up her arms in the process. Luckily, there is only one hospital in this entire city, and Rose ends up in the same hospital that she works at, and of course, due to the fact that she works there, Dr. Desai shows up to ask her what's wrong, considering he has all the knowledge of everyone who gets brought into the ER. Rose and Trevor finally make it home, and of course the first thing that Rose has to say to her loving significant other is that I'm not crazy, but on the other hand, that's exactly what a crazy person would say. But with Trevor being as emotionally supportive as a bag of wet paper towels, he just keeps trying to deflect the conversation and just wants to go inside. All the while, Rose is explaining to Trevor what she thinks is going wrong with her, even to the point where Rose is keeping him in the car. She then explains how something is threatening her like an evil spirit or something of that nature, and that it's the same thing that killed her patient and is now going to do the same thing to her. Trevor, in all of his loving ability, says he can't deal with it, and then says it's genetic, referring to her mental illness, even saying that he's looked it up. And wow, this dude super sucks, even blaming Mustache's death on her. Now Rose decides, for o'clock in the morning is the best research time as she does some more investigating as to what happened to her patient's professor, who, if you remember, was initially the one who forever sleeped himself in front of her. But none of that matters as we can see Rose's dead mom has come to pay her a visit. Don't you just hate it when the in-laws show up unannounced? Rose then goes to the house of the professor who went forever 99 as his wife recalls his final days of how he seemed to slip further and further into insanity. It also turns out that Gabriel was quite the artist as he started drawing everything he was seeing, with a lot of it being very dark and vile images, with it all culminating in a black picture with just a smile. Rose also finds out that Gabriel also witnessed someone forever sleep at the conference he went to, adding to the ever-growing list of people who are being affected by the same curse that Rose is. Rose then goes to the one person who will probably help her in all of this, and that's right, it's definitely her boyfriend. I'm sorry, did I say boyfriend? I meant ex-boyfriend, since her current one sucks massive Joel ultimately decides he will help her, and I'm not a detective or anything like that, but I guess they can just access any file from their living room while chilling out in their socks. But Joel finds out that there was indeed another incident with Gabriel where he witnessed a death just a week prior to his own. Joel presses on and finds out that there was yet another report about a death 4 days before her own demise, even showing CCTV video of a man trying to take a little bit off the top with a pair of hedge clippers. This moment will also bring up some questions later, but we will just put a bookmark in that for right now. Rose then arrives home to see that Trevor has called a psych in because he once again sucks. Rose gets right to the point in saying that Trevor only cares about himself and his perfect little life, which is spot on. Rose tries to go to anyone who may help her with anything and goes to her loving sister, who swiftly believes that Rose is going down the same path of their mother. But to be fair, Rose isn't doing herself any favors by acting like a complete nut job. During this, Holly explains how Rose has traumatized Jackson with the awesome gift that she gave him, but with this gets brought into attention later, and without getting too far ahead of ourselves, we'll just put another bookmark in this and come back to it later. Man, we really are going to have a lot to come back on, huh? After their wonderful conversation, this movie provides one of the greatest scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Yep, that's right, Slinky Neck Sister.
Holly.
After having a 5-course meal in a parking lot, she gets a call from the one person who cares about her. That's right, Joel. It's Joel. He then begins to ask her about why she didn't tell him about her patient's connection to the other cases they looked at earlier. Joel then tells her he's found 20 cases, but only 19 have ended themselves. That one person having murdered a random person in front of someone, but the main eyewitness to the incident later continued the cycle. Rose then begins to explain how her patient wasn't suicidal until the very last second, where it appeared as if it was someone else. Joel even saying that none of them survived longer than a week, with Rose even revealing that today was her 4th day, meaning that at best she has 3 days left to survive. But hey, at least Joel actually tries to make Rose feel better by saying that he won't let the same thing happen to her, and in a matter of 30 seconds he's already been more of a supportive significant other than her actual significant other has been this entire movie. Joel, now using his super detective powers, is able to get Rose into a prison facility that is holding the one man that survived this curse. Rose then begins to ask Mr. Talley about what he experienced in the days leading up to the incident. As she begins to rattle off the people who continue the curse, you can tell that Mr. Talley is very much disturbed by this information. Mr. Talley explains that when he did his own research into what was going on, he found that there was a man in Brazil that was able to escape the chain by killing his neighbor in front of his neighbor's wife, claiming that whatever it is being spread to each person needs trauma in order to spread. Which is where we come to our first red flag, so to speak, because if it requires trauma to spread, then how come it is not spread to her nephew? I distinctly remember her sister saying in the exact words that she has traumatized her son, but I guess that trauma doesn't count? Is it just has to be murder trauma? I guess when probably seeing a dead cat in your birthday gift as a 6-year-old probably equates to seeing a murder as an adult, but what do I know? Do I look like a psychiatrist? Rose then spills the beans by saying she can't kill someone, which causes Mr. Talley to go into an absolute freakout because he doesn't want it passed back to him because of trauma. After that wonderful interview, Rose makes it back to her house only to get a call from her therapist, because that's always what you want, just your therapist calling you at every hour of the day. After spending some good old time researching the case and getting absolutely nowhere with it, her therapist decides to show up on her own, because I guess if therapists are getting paid enough, they should just be allowed to, I guess. The conversation between Rose and her therapist would go about as well as you would expect for a potentially crazy person to be talking to a therapist who believes absolutely nothing of what she says. The only redeeming part of this whole conversation is is that the phone starts ringing, allowing Rose to take a break from the conversation, only to find out that the person on the other side of the phone is her therapist, her actual therapist, which leads to the therapist sitting across from her either trying to smile or is currently pooping themselves, because I've never seen anyone smile like this before in my life. Like, did they really have to cast someone that doesn't know how to smile? I mean, it's not that hard. Rose now though is on the brink and contemplating the whole transfer to someone else via a big messy murder, and we see that she's brought a kitchen knife with her to her job. Considering how, you know, she works with crazy people, she's going to attempt to pass it off as one of the crazy people tried to attack her, and she just started stabbing. And of course, who is it that draws the lucky straw? Well, it's Carl, the guy from the beginning. You know, the guy who's already kind of had a hard life right now, but you know what if we just decide to make it just a little bit more complicated by, you know. And of course, this poor man is absolutely terrified, because the last time she interacted with him, she said that he was attacking her, which led to him getting absolutely tackled right before she stabs him in the chest in front of her boss. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, she's managed to transfer the curse to someone else. All while the crazy man apparently starts laughing while it's going on, and of course her boss responds the only way a normal person would respond, and that's by ripping his face off, only to find out that none of it actually even happened. She's just sitting there in her car the entire time, and that was one intricate dream, nightmare, hallucination thing. After being confronted by her boss in the parking lot, and he even sees that there's a knife in her car, she decides that she needs to be alone and absolutely books it out of there, because she has decided in her mind that the best thing that she could do is to be alone somewhere. That way she cannot spread this curse to anyone who can come in contact with her. And where exactly can she go that she would be absolutely alone? That's right, a Doja Cat concert. No, I'm just kidding, you guys. It's the old family home that's just out in the middle of nowhere. You know, the place that brings back the loving family memories of mom ODing and her sister abandoning her. And to be honest, the place looks like it's aged perfectly. And don't you worry, you Zillow enthusiasts out there, the inside of the house looks just as great as the outside. Completely furnished with all the 2 children's beds, the rotting wallpaper, and the main part of the house that really draws it all together and really makes that place feel like a home. The bed where mother OD'd and died. But as she's in this house, she has a flashback to her mom begging her to call the cops because she made a mistake. And of course, Rose, being the responsible child that she is, goes, "No, get wrecked, mom," and lets her die. And now comes the part in every horror movie where we batten down the hatches and prepare for the big battle, that being just locking all the doors, shutting the windows, and pulling the curtains too. And for some reason, having an old lantern from like the 1920s, because I know that I have a lantern in my garage from the 1920s. But as most of you would probably expect, Rose's plan is to just ride out the storm here in this house and eventually just die on her own, leaving the curse nowhere to go. But she only thinks that she's alone, because right down the hall is everyone's favorite side character, Mom. You know, the one who died about 40 years ago? Yeah, that's right, she's just chilling out in the bedroom. But after apologizing for all her failures as a mom, she decides to show the best way possible to show your love to your children. And what's better than gifts, toys, and unconditional love? That's right, by turning into a giant monster. And at this point, Rose is basically what we call down bad. That being in the fact that the mom monster explained to her that everything is in her mind. So even if she were to do her best to try to avoid it or try to fight back, it's all in her mind. But Rose, being the ever brilliant psychiatrist that she is, says that even though it's in her mind, she can fight back, and that the monster can't escape her mind. There's a lot of talk about mind here. You know, all before slamming the lantern onto the monster's head and setting it on fire, Freddy Krueger style, and effectively conquering her own demons. As Rose walks away from her childhood home, burning down behind her, not only symbolizing that she's beaten the curse, but has also let go of all the trauma and guilt that she has felt due to the fact of letting her mother die. After doing so, she then returns back to her normal life and even goes to meet Joel, because Joel is a million times more supportive than anybody else in her life. Rose even comes clean to Joel, saying that due to her trauma as a child, she put up walls trying not to let people get too close to her because she was afraid of what would happen if she were to lose them, until she met Joel, in which she felt closer to anybody in her entire life, and that scared her. So she ultimately broke it off, ultimately asking Joel if she can sleep there for the night. And of course, Joel, being a normal, empathetic human, says, "Sure, I'll stay there while you sleep," even saying that he'll stay there with her forever. Aw, how sweet. Until everything fades to dark around her, and Joel begins to smile because Get tricked, nerd. She never left the house. She's still at her family home, and it was like she never left. We're really doing this whole fake nightmare hallucination thing again, aren't we? The worst part about this being is also the fact that Joel is now there, because he knows about her life, and so he came here to help her, thinking that this is where she would be. But so is the Smile Mommy monster, as we see that the Smile Mommy monster appears to finally take complete control of Rose by entering her mouth. Yes, I also thought that was a weird touch. But Joel finally breaks in to try to help the one person that he cares about, only to see that Rose has now covered herself in gasoline and proceeds to do the one thing that people do once they cover themselves in gasoline, and that is strike a match, thus continuing the cycle. And that is our movie. Now it begs the question, what does Joel do to fix the curse? Does he just continue it on in the way of forever sleeping himself, or does he use his detective abilities and, I don't know, maybe he just accidentally shoots someone who is doing something they shouldn't have and just goes, oh man, that guy was trying to take my gun and so I had to shoot him 38 times. And that person over there witnessed it, so now that person's cursed. Who knows? The world may never know, but you know what the world will know? What my ranking is, baby. Let's get right into it. So for the plot, I really enjoyed it. Whenever I first watched this movie with my girlfriend, she thought it was kind of dumb, and I'm a stickler for originality. I really like the fact that this is a horror movie that came out, and it's not like all the other horror movies that came out where it's just another Insidious Part 392 or The Conjuring, The Tale of the Haunted Toilet. It's unique, it's different. I enjoyed it. I'd probably give it a 1.5 out of 3. It wasn't earth-shattering. It wasn't something where I'm like, man, I want to watch this every day, because it does have its holes, but I really value originality. I just think some of the holes are really preventing it from getting over that hump. When it comes to acting, I feel like everyone did a pretty decent job. I just feel like if you're going to have a movie where the main terror is supposed to come from creepy smiles, you kind of have two people in the entire movie who can pull off a creepy smile. Like, I like the character Joel's acting. I also like the main character of Rose. I feel like she did a good job of portraying this like mental break throughout the movie, but the scene where the therapist, that's not a smile. That looks like me whenever I'm taking a dump and it smells extra smelly because I ate Taco Bell burritos. Like, that's not the kind of smile. It just ruins it. And unfortunately for that, this is also going to get a 1.5. It brings it down a bit, but still mid, not terrible. And for the cinematography, it's basic. They do some of the typical horror movie shots where they use sharp edges to try to emphasize that terror or horror feel of anxiety that apparently is supposed to come from sharp-edged objects, like especially with the house and the diamond at the end of the movie. They really focus on that. And a lot of what they do of the overhead shots, they do some of those upside down shots, which I feel like if you're not using it in a particular like transition or as in some sort of mind break for a character and you're just using it to establish your movie, it kind of loses any type of importance to. It just comes off as one of those things where it's like, hey, look, we can make the camera go upside down. So it's not doing anything too over the top whenever it comes to cinematography. So it's just going to get the 1 point for me. And then for the bonus point, I'm going to go ahead and give it the full bonus point. Like I said, I really value originality when it comes to movies nowadays. I feel like that's something that's lacking a lot when it comes to especially horror movies. I feel like everyone has this formula that they think works, so nobody is really trying to take that step to do something different. Instead, it's just kind of complacent with pumping out the same type of horror movies year after year. So I feel like with this, it has some uniqueness to it. It does something different. It does at least try, and that for me is so much more valuable than any type of cinematography shots or acting or anything that I just really value is originality. So as I said, I'm going to give it the full point. So if we go ahead and add everything together, that leaves us with a total score of 5 out of 10. And if we are to compare that to the IMDb rating, IMDb has it as a 6.5 out of 10, which I find is a very fair rating for this movie. It's a little bit higher than mine, but I also had that mid tag on it. So I'd say anything over 7 is kind of considered a good movie. 4.5 to kind of 6.5 in that range is considered mid. One of those movies where it's like, yeah, if you want to go for it, go watch it. It could be good for some people might not like it, and that's a definition of mid. So my personal opinion, go watch it. I feel like if you haven't seen it, it's already been out for quite a while now, almost 2 years at this point. Go watch it. I feel like everybody can take something from this movie. I enjoyed watching it on my first run. Like I said, I really like originality, but I obviously liked it enough to watch it again for this review, so do with that information what you will. But that is going to be the end of this review. Thank you to everyone who stopped by. I know my upload schedule has been rather hectic lately. I've been working a lot of hours at my job, so more hours at job, less time at home. Divide that by 3, it equals I have less time to work on videos, but it doesn't mean that I still don't enjoy it. I hope that everyone enjoys this. I hope that everyone comes back to watch other videos in the future, and as always, until next time, you all stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.